Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for an overview of all of these books that were recently released from Fantagraphics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before going any further, a big thank you to the folks at Fantagraphics for sending us copies of each and every one of these books. All these books are already available in the book market and in the direct market. So we have a series of hardcovers, a continuing series. Oh my gosh, that we got just a few more volumes and then we can call it a day. As a matter of fact, let's actually start with one of the Duck books. Let's go ahead and talk about Donald Duck, the 90th anniversary collection, what it is. And as always, in the description of the video, I do leave the timestamps so you can jump around in case you're just curious about one or two titles. And before I go any further, please don't forget to smash that like button. It goes a long way for us here on the channel. Very small thing you can do, but it does mean the world to us. So we will look at each and every one of these at a time. And again, I give you a small synopsis as to what the books are about. Sometimes they're so crazy, I don't think the synopsis do them justice, so just check out the artwork. Alright, kicking it off with Walt Disney's Donald Duck, the 90th anniversary collection. This is a hardcover and the art is on board. And we'll look at the build here in a little bit. We do have different end sheets. I love when they do that. And this is a collection that if you've been getting the Duck comics, especially the ones translated by Fantagraphics, you are going to be double dipping a little bit. For the people that want new stories, there are some new stories in here, but for a couple of these, they have already been released because we are celebrating 90 years of Donald Duck. And with that 90 years, you're going to run through some masters in here, such as Carl Barks and Don Rosa, but also some other folks that you may not have heard of in case you haven't expanded overseas with some of their works. But you have the Marco Rotas stuff in here. You've got William Van Horn in here. And as you can see, they do give credit to all of the different creators through here. But it does start off with an introduction of 90 years. We have some early newspaper comics, the special correspondent right here. And then we get Sleepy Time Donald, which is, I think it predates the Carl Barks stuff. That one came out in 1947. Then, of course, Lost in the Andes, which you've read. So we do have a table of contents. This book has 368 pages. Here is your introduction by David Gerstein, talking about the history of Donald Duck and how it first started into the world of comics. Of course, you know, coming from the world of Walt Disney animation, then coming into the comic strips, and then eventually the comics. So I love the fact that this is such a historical book because what they do is they tell you what year it was printed and then where it was printed. Like, these are the newspaper strips right here. And as you can probably tell, there really wasn't a lot of dialogue back then. And they were just one-page strips where the gag started in just 4 panels or 6 panels. And then eventually, in 1938, this is Federico Pedrocchi, reunites Donald with Peter Pig right here from Silly Symphonies. So some of the stuff has been collected before, and like I said, some of it has not. Now, Donald Duck Special Correspondent, that goes on for a little bit until we get to this one right here. This is Sleepy Time Donald, which is an adaptation of the animated Sleepy Time Donald. This came out in 1947. By 1949, this is where we get Enter the Duckman right here, or the story by Carl Barks, Lost in the Andes. And this is what, like, a lot of people probably were blown away with at the time. Like, oh, this is a lot different than what was going on. You know, we're not looking at just like one pagers anymore, or, you know, even this story with him and Daisy, that were, you know, just an adaptation of an animated short. But now we're looking at an adventure that we haven't seen before with his nephews, Huey, Louie, and Dewey. And of course, Andy's right. I mean, we got shout out to Peru. That's what I'm saying. That's where I was born. You know, I never saw a llama until I came to America, though. This is a classic story by Carl Barks. It's been printed many times before, and it's part of the Carl Barks library. Then you have other creators in here from the 60s, from the 70s. You do have the story from Don Rosa. Now, you don't have like the first appearance of Scrooge McDuck or the first appearance of Gyro, because we are focusing on just one character, and it's so hard just to capture moments or stories from different eras by different creators. So I'm glad that they only used like one Carl Barks and then one Don Rosa story in here. Even though the Don Rosa story is a little bit of a throwback to a Carl Barks story. And if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. And speaking of, the return to plain awful. Now, something you will notice is that sometimes Uncle Scrooge is wearing the blue jacket, and then sometimes he's wearing the red jacket, which is the way that Carl Barks always envisioned him. So that is the way that most of the artists through here do draw him with, or I guess color it with. So anywhere from adventures here on Earth, to space, to the future, and you do have some of the cast members or supporting cast from his comics. Now, if you've only watched DuckTales and you want a small taste as to what the wonderful world of comics have to offer, honestly, this is a phenomenal book because it's an anthology of just different stories throughout different eras of Donald Duck. This is the last story that's in here, 1998. This is the is it Grandma Duck? Oh, Back to Grandma's Farm, so it's just a one-pager. But this is the last comic in here, and that is from 2010, The Duck Avenger, A Love Lost to Oblivion. In the very back, you do have a little bit about the editorial staff that helped put this together. And this is from Plain Awful, if I'm not mistaken. And then your end sheets. Again, the book has 368 pages. This one retails for $59.99. And it does have sewn binding. You and a Bike and a Road. This is a hardcover. And here's the spine, Davis, you, and a bike and a road, and the Fantagraphics logo back there, or down there. And what this is the story. It's all written and drawn by Eleanor Davis. And it is her story about riding from Tucson, Arizona to Athens, Georgia. But as you probably know, I mean, with a book this thick, it has 172 pages. It's not just about the bike ride. It's a it's about, I don't want to spoil what exactly happens in here, but it is about dealing with her personal demons and about finding herself and about finding the strength of the human body and how much it can endure. And all of the people that she meets through here, some of them kind, some of them creepy, some of them nice, and is that different than kind? I guess it is. Kind people let you stay with them at their house. Nice people are like, hey, here's some food and water. Maybe that's, I just made that up, I'm sorry. But this is what the artwork looks like. It is all her drawings, and it is about leaving her parents' house and then heading back home to her husband. But she did want to take this particular bike ride. And I found the journey really interesting because she wanted to take it because they had been talking about having kids, and she thought to herself, well, will I ever be able to do this after having kids? Or, you know, it's going to be a long time before I can do this. And my body is not going to stay in the same shape forever. So she does have issues with her knee. And that does become a thing through here. And there's also some like little flashbacks as to what's happened previously and what kind of led her to this decision. And I will say that I've never taken a trip like this. A bike, I think the most my wife and I had done is just gone away for a day. And to do this for so many days, for so long, and then each one of the trips, she actually jots down exactly how many miles she traveled on these particular days. Now, she doesn't travel every day. You will see through this journal, I guess it is like a journal, that she actually rests sometimes, and not just because of her knee, but because she needs a break. And you'll see where she ends up sleeping through the night, and you'll see how she deals with the weather. It's just a really interesting journey, and something that I would love to see like a documentary on, following somebody for this long. Does she make it? I'm sure most people want to know. I would rather you find out for yourself if she was able to make it all the way from Tucson, Arizona to Athens, Georgia. That's something that I would love for you to find for yourself, because, I mean, it is a journey, and it's Eleanor's journey, and it's all about the bike, and then, of course, the ties with her father, her husband, and her mom. And man, I gotta just say, I just love the parents. As far as like extras in the back, there's a little bit of a thank you back here. There is an afterword, and I don't want to even spoil what happens in the thank you and who it's for, because it spoils a little bit about what happens at the end. 172 pages. This is a hardcover with art on board, and it is sewn binding. This retails for $22.99. Future by Tomi Musturi. And remember when I said that some of these, even talking about it, won't do them justice? Yeah, this is one of them for sure. It does have some French flaps here. So it is a soft cover, printed in this matte paper. And how to best describe this? This is a collection of, I believe, 10 different comic strips, or I'm sorry, comic issues, but each one of those are in an anthology. You have the host over here actually introducing the book, and to kind of give you an idea of what's in here is we have this family here on a picnic, and then the world all goes to hell as it looks like Armageddon is happening, and they're still stuck in this little piece of land right here that is their picnic. But what Future is, it's an anthology series that focuses on a possible future, how the world may be. Like, this is a Fred Flintstone take right here, the stoners. This guy's dealing with, of course, technology. Some of them are comic strips, some of them are long stories. The most fascinating thing about this, that I hope the video does justice capturing, is the range of art in Musturi's, like, panels and just stories. They're so different. Like, one guy did all of this, and you're going to see some beautiful, absolutely stunning pieces of, I said that as I see that old man butt right there. Yes, right here. Like, just this particular art is so stunning, and just, how is it that it's the same artist? It kind of reminds me a little bit of Mobius as this. So you are going to see some mature themes in here, mainly nudity, a little bit of just, and I mean a little bit of like sexual content, but it's mainly nudity, some language, but this is the artwork. It's about where the world will end up. Now, here's the thing about this book. When I say it's a post-apocalyptic world, or where Earth's future is heading, most people think, oh, this is serious. Not really. This kind of reads like Mad Magazine. It doesn't take itself too seriously. There are obviously a lot of homages here for different superheroes, or just different comics that were around at the time, not necessarily superheroes, or even cartoons. But it was definitely one weird trip that I don't think a video could do justice. It is goofy. It's almost really thought-provoking at times. You can see some of the some of the allegories he was using, and some of the metaphors. Sometimes they're a little bit in your face, but oh my gosh, was this an experience? And I guess that's the best way to describe something like this, an experience. I don't think that you can do something like this for, this is the artist thinks, and making this book. I don't think you could do something like this in animation, because I thought about like what this would look like in animation. I don't think it would do it justice, because I remember like even Mobius, whenever they try to animate a lot of the Mobius stuff, like just never really did his art justice. They are using this almost like newsprint type of paper for this book. It is glued binding. It is amazing to me just how Musturi channels all these different art styles throughout the years to put them all in one book. It's crazy to me that it's just one person working on this, and I am so glad that Fantagraphics brought it over here to America. So that is Future. Never Again Will I Visit Auschwitz, a graphic family memoir of trauma and inheritance. This is such a different read than something like Future. It's more like you and a bike and a road, because of the events that happened. And this is all done by Ari Richter, and it is the story of his family. Not just one family member, but the entire family tree that he could go back to during the Holocaust. And it is a powerful read. It is a disturbing read. So, if you can't read things about the Holocaust or just humans being tortured, this may not be for you. But man, this was a powerful read. I've read so many of these on the plane. I went to LA for a few days to cover an event with the amazing Amanda. And, reading this book on the plane, I had to put it down a couple of times and go take a break and read some of Future, or actually took a break and read some of the Donald Duck, the last Donald Duck collection that we have, Volume 3. So what this is, like I said, it's a memoir of his family. And it really hits at the very beginning, like when you see like his grandparents talk about just exactly how much they lost, how many family members they lost, how many cousins. You'll see a family tree in here where you don't even know where some of the family members ended up, and it's just hits you in different ways. So he does a big study because something happens within the book. So it's a true story. Something happens within this book that motivates him to create a memoir, but he doesn't know exactly what to do with this information. So what he ends up doing is creating this graphic novel to go back and take a look at the stories of his grandfather, his grandmother, paternal and maternal, and see about their stories, and his uncle and his aunt. He is a collector, and of course, into comic books. And the style that he uses through here, of course, is like photographic, photorealistic style, but then his own, like, it really feels like independent work, like something you would find in a zine. But again, it's just amazing how much of this was recorded. And luckily it comes from like videotapes and interviews with his family members. So nothing gets really lost to history. Or, I'm sorry, what's recorded in this book was not lost through history. And you're going to see how they ended up escaping Germany, but also Poland, and just the different places that they had to travel, and how some of them refused to leave, and what ended up happening to some of these people. And, doesn't have a happy ending. And what's with the title? What's with Never Again Will I Visit Auschwitz? Well, that is part of the book. Like, he does get to visit, and you'll find out what exactly the title means when you read this. This is a hardcover, and it is printed in glossy paper stock. This is your end sheet right here. So both of them, the family trees. And it has 256 pages, and it's sewn binding. The book retails for $34.99. And that is Never Again Will I Visit Auschwitz, a graphic family memoir of trauma and inheritance. Iris, a novel for viewers. So this is the first time that this book has been printed in English. It is a softcover and it is oversized. This book has 136 pages and retails for $24.99. Now this one definitely has mature themes. A lot of it has sexual content and, of course, nudity. So just in case any of that turns you off. But here, let me see if I can skip a few pages so we can look at this amazing art, or what I find amazing, just how poppy it is, these particular colors that are used through here. Is everything good here? I think we're okay. All right. So what is this about? This was originally released in the Netherlands in 1968, and again, finally available in English. And this is the story of Iris and how she wants to become a megastar. Not just in her country, but all over the world. She wants to become a megastar, no matter what it takes. So she kind of gathered a following, performing in this Amsterdam nightclub. And again, I got to be careful when I'm flipping through here. Okay, we're good. So she's in this nightclub, and she performs in this Amsterdam's nightclub scene, and she kind of gets, like I said, a following. So then what ends up happening is this Dream King, who is like an entertainer, MG, wants to, give her this popularity. Like he wants to give her something. He invites her to move into his dream factory, where him and his minions began the process of molding Iris into this idol, because this is something that she's wanted for a long time. And this is when she starts changing in appearance, and then there's this whole thing about like holographic doppelgangers and what it's like to market a human being. We okay there? I think we're okay. But this is the type of artwork that you're going to find in here. And I didn't even talk about the guy at her side right here. Mark. Mark's been giving her warnings. That's her boyfriend at the time. He feels like that she's seduced to be this use for this capitalist producer. So it is a little bit of that, you know. It's definitely a story within a story in here if you look into it, and I think that's the point of something like this. But Mark is like trying to warn her that, you know, they're stealing not just your looks and everything, but they're going to end up stealing your money and then eventually your identity. So then it becomes of how much you're willing to sacrifice to get your dreams. So that's what this is about. And my gosh, the art is just absolutely stunning. Kind of reminds me, I'm sure some people will think of like Yellow Submarine. There are articles that make it another book that's completely worth diving into for the historical aspect of it, and just some of the behind the scenes, behind the, you know, the style and the colors, and let me see, and some of the inspiration and where it came from. There's an afterword here. So the give credit where credit is due. This is all written by Lo Hartog van Banda, and the artist is T. Jong King. The colors is Rudy Vrooman. And the translation there by Laura Watkinson. So this particular book has 136 pages and retails for $24.99. And that is Iris, a novel for viewers. Available in English for the first time. Mothballs. This is a trade paperback. And this was originally published in Argentina and translated into English. And here are your flaps right here. So it is a soft cover, so French flaps. And Mothballs. All by Sole Otero and translated by Andrea Rosenberg. To Elsa, Margarita, and Maria. So this was originally published in Argentina, so it was in Spanish. But it is about an Italian family that moved to Argentina. And it is about this 19-year-old girl named Rocio. And Rocio has inherited her grandmother's house. So after her grandmother passed away, and this all taking place, by the way, in 2001, her grandma, Vilma, ends up leaving the house to her. It really could have gone to anybody, like her uncle, but the family decided to give it to her. So what she does is she decides to move in and get away from her family, and there's a certain smell that triggers memories in this house, so she takes her friend, their valet, to her grandmother's house. And I love the fact that this keeps coming back, and this picture will be embedded in your head once all said and done. So in here, memories are being triggered. She mentions things like, you know, this house seemed a lot bigger when I was little. And you can see that she was so distant. I love the imagery in here. She was so distant from her grandmother. She didn't like her grandmother. And the more you find out about the grandmother, you won't either. There's a cat that shows up out of nowhere, and the cat does end up getting a name, and the name actually means something really powerful, and it doesn't happen until towards the very end. This one moved me. I had a lot of emotions with this book, because at first, when you're reading about this 19-year-old that's moving into this house, she just seems like a spoiled brat. Like, oh, she doesn't really admire the fact that, you know, her grandmother left her to this house, and I'm sure her grandmother worked really hard, so all we have is a one-sided story about how horrible her grandmother was. But as you get to read through here, you find out through a series of flashbacks and pictures about the life of her grandmother, and perhaps why Vilma was the way she was. So it goes all the way back from stories that her grandma told her to her great-grandparents. So Vilma's grandparents, talking about, was it great-great? Would that be great-great, right? So great-grandparents would be Vilma's parents. Yeah, great-great-grandparents' son. And how they ended up escaping during World War II. And there's a really powerful moment in here when she realizes that she may not be in this world if it wasn't for the horrific things that happened during World War II. You know, you get to be a certain age and you start thinking things like that. Like, horrible things sometimes lead into something good. Like, she's not justifying what happened. She just comes to the realization that if this hadn't happened during this particular time, her great-great-grandparents wouldn't have escaped and gone to Argentina to have children. And I thought that was a damn emotional moment, like when she realizes that. So in here, you're going to find out about Vilma's parents, her connection to her brother, and the secret that her brother has, Antonio, and her own connection to her mother, and what kind of woman her mother was. And perhaps it says a lot about Vilma and the way that she treated her family and how stubborn she was. But also, perhaps it's a way for Ro, that's what we call her, or I'm sorry, that's what they call her in the book, to find out who she is and why she is a certain way. And maybe, just maybe, she might change her ways and the way that she treats her friends and family. I thought this was an emotional, powerful read, and I could not put this one down. I was on the plane as we were landing, and I was like, they were letting us out, and I'm like, okay, I got about 25 more pages. I got this. Oh, man. It is such a good book. This one has 333, okay, I'm going to talk pretty one day, 336 pages, and retails for $29.99. The mature themes through here, it's mainly just the language. There's some sexual content in here, all done through a series of, like I said, flashbacks. There is an afterwards, and there is a reason why it's called Mothballs. I mentioned something about smells earlier, but that is Mothballs by Sole Otero. Last but certainly not least is Walt Disney's Donald Duck, Volume 3. It is finally here. Mystery of the Swamp, the oldest book in the Carl Barks library. So, yeah, Volume 3, Mystery of the Swamp. This is what we have so far. Got all the way to 28. We've got just a few more volumes. This book has 240 pages and retails for $35. Printed in, again, the thick matte paper they've been using for years. And this series, like, started off, I think it was it Christmas on Bear Mountain or Lost in the... No, it was Lost in the Andes. I think Lost in the Andes. I just talked about that in the 90th anniversary of Donald Duck. That came out in 2011. Since 2011, we've been getting 2 volumes a year. So, 2 volumes a year. And Lost in the Andes, I think it's volume 7, if I'm not mistaken. Just trying to think. Yeah, Lost in the Andes is volume 7. Now we got volume 3, the oldest one, because we didn't have anything before this. Here's your table of contents, including an introduction here by Freddie Milton, who's a cartoonist himself, talking about his first Duck comic. I love reading that. And everything in here is written and drawn by Carl Barks, unless it's noted. And you are going to see the Mickey Mouse mystery in here. One of the few times that Carl Barks got to draw Mickey. But this is the complete library. You know, like I said, we've got a few more. I believe they said it was a little over 30, if not 30. So we got just a couple more. Now, these are coming out, like I mentioned, twice a year. There are also box sets of these that come out. So volume 3 and 4 will be put together, and volume 4 has been available already. So there are 20 stories that are collected through this particular volume, and we kick it off with the Mystery of the Swamp. And Mystery of the Swamp is a very Carl Barks story. It's the story of Uncle Scrooge, how he ends up going to the Florida Glades, sorry, Uncanny Omar talk pretty again. Is that the second time I've done that? This video? Everglades with his nephews. And they're trying to go on this adventure, and he wants more of an adventure. So they run into somebody that's fishing next to them, and he tells them that the Everglades are actually a place where not every piece of land has been explored. So he ends up running into, or I guess they end up running into this unexplored world of this small tribe called, what are they called? The Neleon? No, this starts with a G. The Neasels. I'm just going to pronounce it as the Neasels. And that's what that story is about. And it is one long adventure here. We have the tramp steamer, the long race to Pumpkinburg. And, you know, some of these stories longer than others, but all of them written and drawn by Carl Barks, and different types of adventures through here. Now, this is years. We still have about a year, right, before the first appearance of Scrooge McDuck. So it's really the chemistry between Uncle Donald and his nephews. So it's that type of adventure. There is the Christmas, the best Christmas that's collected in here as well. This is the Firebug, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the story that had a different ending. Yeah, so the ending here is the original ending that Carl Barks wanted, but the editor at the time wanted to change it, so you'll have the original, or the ending that the editor put out there. This is Mickey Mouse and the Riddle of the Red Hat, and it features Minnie and a lot of other characters you may be familiar with, and how he ends up buying a red hat for her that changes her in different ways. All of the story notes are back here, so if you want more of the behind the scenes, this is it. And it's all done by Disney Duck scholars. You learn so much through here. It is wonderful. I love the fact that they included the Mickey story back here. I'm glad that they did not leave that out. And there are a couple of covers here by Carl Barks. And I love when they include the covers there. And the behind the scenes of the content. Yeah, this is another welcome edition. So I do think that Volume 2 has already been solicited for next year. So we're going to get another one that's from early in the career of Carl Barks. Well, after being a cartoonist and going into the comic book world. But this particular book, again, has 240 pages. And then there's the bio, and then where else you can get the Duck books. And it retails for $35. It is sewn binding with, there's that eye, and this matte paper stock that they use. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of these particular releases. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you are picking up, which ones you already had on the radar, and which ones you didn't even know about. And what other books you would love to see Fantagraphics release sometime either this year or next year. And if you have any questions, leave those down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.